Thank you for joining me here at Xrissart. My name is Chrissy, and in this video I will be telling a story about the character in this painting, which is part of my Element Realm playing card deck project. But before I get to the story, I just wanted to mention I started this painting on a 24-hour live stream where I was joined by Wendy O'Brien from Artista365, and I'll put a link of the live stream in the description box below. The art supplies I used were Panpastels, pastel pencils on 40 by 50 centimetre Pastelmat board. Beneath the element water realm, duty before love. Sitting on the cliff's edge, elbows resting on his knees, hands underneath his chin, breathing in the freshness of the salt sea air, feeling the soft sea spray on his face, looking ahead but not seeing. It was twilight, the savage sea crashing beneath the cliff face, listening to the violent roar of the sea, a thunderous rumble of surf breaking. Lulled by the ocean, the moments of silence as the waves retreat before returning to throw themselves relentlessly against the rocks, a sight he never tired of. This was the place where he found solitude, a place where he came to think and reflect. So consumed with his emotion, battling with his rational mind, knowing he will have to relinquish his freedom. Amadeus was now the heir to the throne and must take his place as king of the element water realm. Hearing the news that his father and elder brother had been killed in the Battle of Pearl had left Amadeus with emotions he could not process. Utterly grief-stricken, yet angry, his heart in turmoil, he spoke aloud, almost yelling to them both, "Why did you have to die?" His thoughts went back to the time when he watched his father groom his brother to become the next king. Amadeus had felt relieved that as a younger son, this obligation had not been his. His thoughts snapping back to the present, he realised his life was about to change, but was not sure how he was going to deal with what he felt a burden. Amadeus did not want the responsibility of becoming king. Contemplating a way to escape and to be in a place anywhere but here, fighting his sense of responsibility and duty, the urgency to escape was overpowering. He loved the sea and would swim in the ocean as often as he could. The ocean was his playing field. Needing to think, he plunged into the sea like an arrow leaving its bow, the energy of the ocean propelling him deeper and deeper. How can he escape this responsibility of becoming king without compromising his integrity? Not knowing where he was going, his body twisting and spiralling, tearing through the sea with power and a fleeting urgency. Almost immediately he could sense his body transforming. He felt it before he saw something, a sensation he had never felt before. He feels himself increasing in strength and a stirring he cannot explain. Viciously agitated, as if razor-sharp sea urchin needles are puncturing his skin. All his senses heightened, hearing, sight, smell, touch. He found that he could breathe underwater, so much so it almost alarmed him. His body was taking a different shape. He was shape-shifting and acclimatizing to his surroundings, as he knew his father once could. The ability to transform or shapeshift is a gift bestowed to a king by the creator, Galiel. Trying desperately to push these thoughts from his mind, he understands he cannot escape his place as the Water King. Regrettably, it had already begun to happen. He had been beneath the waves for such a length of time. Consumed with grief and despair over the loss of his father and brother, and yet at the same time furious with them and himself, he was so caught up in his thoughts that he did not realise where he was. He stopped, considered his surroundings, and found himself in an unfamiliar place. So many different creatures that he had not seen before and only heard about from his father's never-ending tales of the sea. Amadeus was aware the ocean was vast and full of extraordinary places with astonishingly wonderful sea creatures, but this place was not known to him. In the far distance, he catches sight of what looked like a city with brilliant lights that could have been mistaken for a cluster of stars twinkling on a clear starry night. Close by, he heard a haunting, melodious vibration and looked around trying to find where this sound was coming from. He had never heard a sound quite like that. The sound was so piercingly high, Amadeus had to cover his ears until he could adjust to the vibration. He followed the sound and came across a delicate creature, a creature he had not seen before but matched the description of the sea creatures his father once spoke of and honoured. The water creature felt Amadeus before she saw him. She stopped singing and scampered away behind a rock formation as fast as she could. She supposed he had been sent by her father to capture and return her to her home. She was the first creature he came across, as this was Amadeus' opportunity to find out about his whereabouts. He caught up with her, and in that moment he seized her gently with his gaze. She could not pull away, thrashing against him to break free. She was overwhelmed and exhausted from attempting to escape the intensity of his gaze. Amadeus was talking without speaking. This was the most unusual sensation for him and didn't know how he was doing this. She ceased to struggle, spellbound, yet aware at the same time, and found herself calming in Amadeus's nearness. He could see in her mind, hear the rush of her heartbeat, feel the fast pace of her breathing. He felt all her emotions rushing at once, anguish, despair, and panic. And in that moment, he sensed compassion for her. Who was she? Where did she come from? So many questions he wanted to ask. Thialekte had come of age and was to be presented at court. She did not like the idea of being on display, bartered a king to a creature for trade. Secretly, some time before, had overheard her parents discussing a union between two families and what that meant for them. They were arranging a marriage between her and the son of a prominent family known to the Pelosian nation. After some time, she realised they were speaking of a union between the Pelosians and the Ceotians. It was inconceivable that Thialekte would be party to this arrangement. So many things were going through her mind. She started to panic and to find a way to leave as quickly as possible. How could her parents consider such a notion, or even the notion that she would agree to such terms? All too suddenly, she was conscious of Amadeus observing her carefully. Soothingly, he spoke first. "Please, fair maiden, I am not here to harm you. My name is Amadeus. I have strayed from my homeland and lost my way. Are you able to tell me where I am?" She looked at him strangely. She had not seen him before, but that didn't mean anything. And so she took a long while before she answered. Perhaps this creature was not sent by her parents. Who was he? She answered in a very calm voice. "My name is Asiya," a false name. She wasn't about to reveal who she was. For all she knew, he may have been commissioned to capture her by her father, or worse yet, her betrothed. Turning, she gestured her head towards the city. Beyond that boulder is the municipality of Pelosia. She looked at him warily and did not know what to make of him, friend or foe. She continued speculatively. "You look..." She paused, searching his face. "Different, strange. You are not from here. I can see that. And you don't appear to be a surface creature." She knew about surface creatures from the stories she'd heard growing up. "How long have you been here? Where are you from?" she asked. Amadeus was reluctant to reveal details of who he was and what was to become of him. He was trying to process his newfound situation. king of the water realm and all that came with it. His skin was covered in small pearlescent turquoise scales, so small that could not be seen with the naked eye. The spaces between his fingers and toes were webbed, and his body an impressive combination of strength and power. His handsome face was commanding, with dark hair beyond his shoulders, with amber-coloured eyes that left you hypnotised if you gazed in them for long enough. Thialekti knew her family would be searching for her by now. This thought brought her back to why she was here in the first place. The anxious feeling to flee was making her panic once more, fighting the urge, questioning her senses and good judgment whether to trust Amadeus or not. Her curiosity finally prevailed, and indeed this was unlike her. Feeling vulnerable, she was taking a chance. Spellbound and fearful of him at the same time. Perhaps he may be able to help her escape. She expressed mildly, "Master, I would like to show you a place which I believe you may find interesting. Perhaps I can take you there." Intrigued where she may lead him, and holding her gaze, replied with a bow, not letting her look away from him, "Indeed, fair maiden, lead the way." She felt a charge of exhilaration and dismissed it as quickly as it came, more afraid of it as she hadn't felt anything like that before. A stirring sensation that threw her off balance, but she hadn't had time to deal with that, so she motioned forward. Looking around him, Amadeus marvelled that this region was part of his realm. Indeed, he needed to know more about it, and had no idea that the water realm extended to these vast oceans. He followed her lead, and observing the way she glided with the current, he had time to study her more carefully now. Her pearlescent skin changed shades as she manoeuvred. A translucent veil sashaying underneath her arms clung to the sides of her body. It gently swayed and gave the impression of a graceful manta ray. Her headdress concealed her tresses, silver strands breaking free, entwining her neck and shoulders. For a moment, he had the urge to touch them, to see what they felt like. The headdress is for the protection of the creatures that approach her. Each strand was charged with power like an electric eel. He had never seen any creature quite like her before. She moved with agility and finesse and was captivating. Amadeus forced to break his gaze from Thialekti to take in his whereabouts. They came to a vantage point looking down at the ruins. This area seemed eerily quiet and abandoned. She took care and surveyed her surroundings. Aware of Amadeus' closeness, she could feel his power as they swam towards the ruins. She was hoping he could not see the effect he had on her. Fortunately for her, they were abruptly greeted by all manner of sea creatures, such as sea dragons and seahorses and dolphins, to name but a few. They were so delighted to see her as she visited this place often, but also kept their distance as they saw Amadeus approach. Nevertheless, they were at ease soon enough, welcoming him as they did Thialekti. She found their behaviour quite extraordinary, greeting a stranger. It's as if he was speaking to them. They circled him, then bowed. This did not go unnoticed by Thialekti, and confirmed her thoughts. This was not an ordinary creature. They spoke for an age, exchanging stories. She spoke of her years growing in the city of Pelosia, and that she was escaping family obligations. He spoke of the surface world, carefully concealing his identity, only revealing his breakaway from the responsibilities to his family. Amadeus was so glad Thialekti brought him to this location. He could tell this was a place where she would come to seek solitude. How serendipitous, something they had in common it seems. Both bearing responsibilities and both wanting to escape them. Amadeus wandered around, exploring the area, discovering little pockets of sea life, never before seen by surface dwellers, marvelled in admiration and wonder. He noticed a section of the sea, swirling violently in a circular motion. It was a powerful energy again, something that Amadeus had not seen before. After a short while, he motioned towards Thialekti. Both felt at ease with each other's company. Amadeus was drawn to Thialekti. Her manner, her spirit, her luminosity, the way she spoke. He was captivated and growing fond of her, held her in a delicate embrace. He could see that if he stayed long enough, his feelings would grow strong for her, which brought thoughts to the forefront and his duty to the water realm. He wanted to be with her, get to know her, be with her and know her world. But he could not escape his responsibilities to the water realm. He realised that he had to return to the surface world. He didn't want to leave Thialekti or this wonderful part of the ocean beneath. She was not a surface creature and knew he could not take her with him. He wanted to tell her who he was. Perhaps it would make it easy for her to understand that he was bound by duty before love. At last he spoke with a soft voice. "Fair maiden, I have to leave this wonderful place you have kindly shown me. I have to return to the surface and be with my people, for my world needs me at this time." She felt a connection with him and understood that she also could not escape her family obligations. She was drawn to Amadeus and didn't know how this was possible. She'd only known him for a short time. She knew if she did not go back to Pelosia, her family would suffer. They swam towards the gateway. She explained, "Master, the only way back to the surface is through this gateway. It only opens when the darkness and the light collide. As you see, this gateway is open now, but not for long, as I have only seen this a few times before." The gateway was the direct path to the surface world and made a sound of roaring, crashing waves spiralling violently round and round. He reluctantly released Thialekti from his embrace and graciously bowed and kissed her hand. She gave him a strand of her hair to remember her by. He looked into her sorrowful eyes and spoke in a slow, deep, calm voice. "Perhaps, fair maiden, we shall meet again." He moved towards the portal, and with that he disappeared, and the portal closed.